try to stop this, postpone the heartache, but I bet your body disagree, cause you keep coming home to me. My eyes are glued to my phone, trying to read your signals, but you say you wanna be alone.
Cheers guys, my name is Kjetil Madsen. If this is your first time around, today we are going to review the FEIYUTECH AK 4500 gimbal. This is a beast of a gimbal if you look at the specifications. It can carry up to 4.6 kilos or 10 pounds. FEIYUTECH did send me this for free to keep, but I'm in no way paid or sponsored, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about this gimbal. Now let's hook this gimbal up with the camera and see what it can do. So, what do I expect from a new gimbal released in 2019? First off, it needs to do the obvious, stabilize the shots even when under fairly rough use. I expect all axis arms to be lockable to be able to transport the gimbal easily. I hate to travel and carry a gimbal that doesn't have a lockable axis. It needs to be able to be taken apart so I can store it easily in my bag. I need to be able to reposition the camera by hand to quickly change my composition. I need quick access to switch between all modes. I need to be able to customize the smoothness and dead zone of the gimbal, and best if it can be done without the use of an app. So, does this gimbal check all the boxes of my expectation? Let's find out, and we'll do a summary in the end. First, what's in the box? Let's run through this quickly. Actually, in the box there is a styrofoam box and another box. This is the standard kit that includes the remote rear handle and the follow focus kit. In the sturdy styrofoam box, we'll find the gimbal itself, a tripod, a lightweight carbon fiber extension rod, a dual base plate, a lens support, a multifunction bracket that can stabilize the top of your camera, and you can connect accessories like a mic, etc. We have 4 batteries and a charger, a wide variety of control cables, USB cables and necessary mounting screws. The gimbal cannot be stored balanced in the box, so you need to rebalance after storing it. In the accessories kit, you get the Hyperlink remote controller, mounting bracket for the controller or rear handle if you like, a follow focus motor, a focus gear if your lens doesn't have gears, a bracket for focus motor, a rod, a phone holder, and the necessary connections and charging cables and screws. So, how does this gimbal compare to other gimbals in its class? Its main competitors are the DJI Ronin S, as shown here, besides the AK 4500, the Cine Crane 3 Lab, and the Mosa Air 2. If we look at the basic specs of the AK 4500, this is a monster of a gimbal. It can handle up to 4.6 kilo payload, but it can also handle as light as 150 grams if you need to stabilize something really small. The weight is 1.6 kilo plus batteries, the rated battery life is 12 hours, and charging time is 5 hours. The price is $749 US. That might be in the top range comparing it to its competitors, but slap on the 10% off code in the video description and the price is not that bad. When you compare it to its main competitors, you get so much more in the box, including the remote rear handle for underslung mode, phone holder, follow focus motor, etc. etc. The maximum payload is also the highest in this class. There is also a basic set coming if you don't want the rear remote handle and follow focus, etc. The price of this set is still unknown. When we compare the features, the AK4500 has a quick release and you also don't need to rebalance after taking off the camera. The Ronin S needs to be rebalanced after taking off the camera. The two others also feature a quick release with no need to rebalance. All the axis arms can be locked on all except the Ronin S. All except the Ronin S has a display, but the AK4500 is the only featuring an easy navigation touchscreen. The AK4500 and the Ronin S can be broken down to two pieces, making it easy to transport in your backpack. The two others do not. The AK4500 has one of the easiest access to all the necessary modes in my experience. On the Ronin S, you only have access to 3 modes and you have to reconfigure them via the app if you need any other mode than the 3 you have pre-programmed. Let's move on and go through the available modes and menus. We have the lock mode, where all the axes are locked. You can use the joystick to control the tilt and pan. We have the panning mode, where the roll and tilt axes are locked and the left and right pan motion follows your move. We have the follow mode, where it follows your tilt and pan and the roll is locked. We have the all follow mode, where the camera follows your pan, tilt and roll. We have the 360-degree inception mode. You can select one rotation or constant roll, both in left and right rotation. You can adjust the speed, faster or slower, with your joystick. This works really great, as you don't need to hold the joystick to get the steady constant roll speed. We also have a selfie mode. Not ideal if you have the rear handle on. You can anytime click the front button twice to return to the straightforward position. Moving further in the menu, we have an auto rotation mode where you can set the time and route or start and end points to get automated or repetitive motion. Use this mode if you're to shoot time lapses. We have a portrait mode if you like to shoot vertical video for Insta stories. This mode is only available in the flashlight position. You can at any time use the side button to return to the main page, or swipe backwards to return to the previous menu page. If you hold the front button, you will enter quick follow, lock mode or heading pitch follow. That's the same as pan follow, depending on how you have set it up in the app. And if you double click the front button, you will recenter the camera. Switch between zoom or follow focus using the side wheel. Focusing is available if you have the follow focus motor attached, and the zoom function is only available if you have a compatible camera and lens. Check the links in the video description for compatible cameras. This button makes you use the wheel to control the pan, tilt or roll individually. Pressing the wheel one time switches from pan to tilt to roll. The same function is also available on the wheel on the remote handle. The next in the menu is the payload setting, or the strength of the motors if you like. In the preset you can adjust the strength via the joystick. If you set it to a motor force too high, you will hear and feel the gimbal starts vibrating. Then you need to adjust the motor strength down again. I find the auto payload settings to work fine in most cases. I'll get back to some issues and how to resolve this later in the review. If selecting auto payload, you have to turn your gimbal off and on again for it to be applied. Next you have the custom option, which you can customize in the app, setting maximum and minimum motor strengths for all 3 motors individually. You can select the photo spot or smoothness of your gimbal if you want. Choose default, smooth or action. You also have the opportunity to customize the speed and dead zone. Great option to have this also in the gimbal and not just in the app. We have the wheel setting, where you can adjust the sensitivity of the gimbal or camera. In the settings menu, you can perform calibration and you can select your language. If you swipe all the way to the left, you can adjust the camera settings if your camera is supported. If you are in the start menu and press the side button, your touchscreen will be locked. An easy and great way to be sure you don't change anything on the fly. Press the button again and you have unlocked the touchscreen. Pressing the mode button changes between all lock and pan mode. This function is also available on the remote rear handle. You can take photos or start and stop recordings if your camera is supported. In the center we have the joystick for controlling your gimbal. I wish it would have a little longer range of movement, as it can be tricky to fine-tune your pan and tilt when on the move. The joystick sensitivity is still a bit too sensitive, even at its lowest setting in my opinion, as I would like it to be even slower. Let's move over to the FEIYUTECH AK F2 follow focus module. This is controllable either via the wheel on the gimbal or via the wheel on the rear remote handle. For smaller controlled situations, I find it usable to have the focus control manually. But especially if in bright sunlight, it's hard to judge the focus via the rear screen, even though this gimbal have off-axis arms making the rear screen easily viewable. I recommend using an external monitor for judging focus, or even better, having a second person pulling focus. This is also doable remotely via the remote handle if you are within the Bluetooth range. I find the slightly bigger wheel on the gimbal easier to use and also just a tiny bit more responsive. The follow focus pieces consist of the bracket, a rod and the focus motor. You connect it via one of the USB connections in front or in the back. Your camera control connections are on the side of the connection module. The rear handle, or the hyperlink remote controller as FEIYUTECH calls it, has the same functions as the main grip on the gimbal. You have the rear button for centering when double clicking, and when holding it, it performs whatever function you have programmed it to via the app. You can switch, as mentioned, between all lock and pan mode via the mode button. There's a wheel with the same functions as on the gimbal. The hyperlink remote controller needs to be paired to the gimbal one time, and then it automatically connects every time after that. It works great. It connects to the gimbal on the mounting bracket for the controller that attaches with 2 screws. Actually, I mounted it the wrong way at first, like they have on their box. Don't do that, as it could break off. Use this included screw. The mount I used at first is for the phone holder or other smaller accessories. One cool feature it has is the possibility to follow your hand movement. This might seem gimmicky, but you can actually achieve some nice slow movement that would not be possible with the joystick. There is a slight delay on the hand movement function, but the buttons and focus wheel seems more responsive. Cool feature, similar to what the Ronin SC needs the phone to do. Here we can just use the remote holding the rear trigger button. There is an internal battery in the remote that charges via the included USB-C cable. Moving on, this gimbal has locks on all 3 axis arms, making balancing one on one axis a breeze. But most importantly of all, it makes transporting and carrying this gimbal so much easier. The locks seem to have a better quality feel than the ones on the Gimbal that seems quite fragile. The gimbal also can be taken into 2 pieces using the twist lock shown here. It fits in a normal sized backpack along your camera after broken down. Here it's shown attached to the outside of a Low Pro Tactic 350 that's a rather small backpack. The included tripod is lightweight and works just as you would expect. The side may be a bit stiff in the movement. Hopefully it will get more loose after some use. But one cool addition in the standard kit is that you also get a really lightweight carbon fiber short monopod. This is really versatile if you need to get higher or have a different vantage point. This monopod can also be used instead of the remote handle as an even lighter rear handle combo. The monopod is extremely light, but it still feels really sturdy. The 2-piece base plate, where the bottom base plate is compatible with Manfrotto PL501 and the upper quick release plate is compatible with Arca quick release, lets you leave the camera bottom plate connected when in use. Just release the top plate if you need to take photos or change batteries or memory cards. It's quick and easy in my experience. This lets you take the camera off and on without needing to rebalance your gimbal. The gimbal comes with 4 18650 lithium-ion batteries that you load in the bottom of your tripod. Just take off the end cap and pop up the battery compartment door. The battery charger is included. It's not possible to charge the batteries in the gimbal, only via the charger. I haven't tested the battery life, but my experience is that you definitely need to call it a night before your batteries do. The rated 12-hour battery life seems plausible if your gimbal is perfectly balanced. Manually changing the camera angle on the gimbal is stated to be possible in both pan and tilt angle in the user manual, but I have not been able to do anything else than the tilt position. Maybe it's a software fault or a fault in the manual, but either way, the tilt position is the most important to be able to adjust by hand, so you quickly can change your composition. It's good enough for me, but I would prefer both directions. Moving over to the Feiyu ON app, first connection to the gimbal was easy and it auto-connects again if you leave that on. Checking and updating your gimbal is easy and no need to connect the gimbal to a computer. The firmware 1004 is the latest as I'm recording this and is what my review is based on. Under the advanced settings, you can set the key trigger or front button, if you will, to quick follow, lock mode or head pitch follow. You can adjust the motor strength. You can adjust the joystick tilt and pan speed and reverse the tilt and pan direction if you like. The joystick sensitivity is still a bit too sensitive, even at its lowest settings in my opinion, as I would like it to be even slower. You can adjust the scene to normal, smooth, motion or custom, letting you adjust the follow speed and follow dead zone, just as you can directly on the gimbal. You can set the auto rotation mode, useful for time lapses. You can adjust your horizon. You can use the joystick to control the gimbal movement remotely. And you can select the different modes in the bottom, as on the gimbal menu. The app works fine and I find it stable, but most settings can actually be controlled via the gimbal itself, and I like that a lot. Let's talk about one of the main purposes of a gimbal, to stabilize your shots. How does it perform? First, you have to talk about the motor force settings that I mentioned earlier. At my first shootings with this gimbal, I got really frustrated. The gimbal kept acting up, starting to vibrate sporadically, indicating that my motor force was too high. Here you have some examples. This was very frustrating. I had to go to the lowest motor force settings to get it to work, resulting in unsteady shots. Even in the auto settings, it would behave like this. But I found the cause, and it was that this gimbal is extremely sensitive if not everything is locked down really tight. You have to tighten the base plate screw really tight, most preferably with a large coin or a screwdriver. But I found that even with a small lens, like the 16mm 1.4 Fuji lens, you have to use the lens support and push it really tight to the lens, almost pushing the lens upwards. If you do this and balance the gimbal correctly, I have no issues with the motor force. If you have a really big camera, consider also using the multifunction bracket that can stabilize the top of your camera. The gimbal is just more sensitive and needs a really sturdy connection compared to other gimbals I've used. Let's look at some examples, all shot in the auto motor force setting. Here is using a 16mm lens, giving a full frame 24mm point of view, no in-camera or lens stabilizing and no pole stabilizing. First walking the Nina walk. And here I'm running as fast as I can with both hands on my gimbal. And here an extreme test with a 56mm lens, giving a full frame 85mm point of view. For a focal length this long, I think it performs decent. And here a rotating shot at 85mm. Here again with pulse stabilizing and slow motion. Here's a test walking stairs at 24mm. If you get your motor force correct, I think this gimbal performs great. As with any gimbal, you need to watch your up and down and side to side movement. That part is up to the gimbal operator. Remember that my camera and lens does not have any image stabilization. Using a stabilized lens or camera would give even better results, eliminating some of the movement from the operator. The heaviest setup I put on it was an X-T3 with a cage, follow focus motor and a 25mm SLR Magic microprime cine lens, combining to roughly 2 kilos. So I haven't been able to test the max weight capacity of this gimbal, but it has good space between the arms, making space for balancing bigger setups. Technically you should be able to put a C300 or a RED on there. I've seen it been done. Alright, let's get back to my list of functions and expectations from a new gimbal in 2019. First, stabilization. I think it performs very good if you have a strong connection between your camera and gimbal. It has the lockable axis arms. It can be taken apart for easy storage. You can manually adjust the tilt angle, but not the pan angle, so partially fulfilling my demand. You have extremely user-friendly access to all modes. You can customize the sensitivity both in the app and in the gimbal itself, but the joystick setting is still a bit sensitive even in the slowest settings. So almost perfect customization possibilities, almost. FEIYUTECH, you're listening? This can be fixed in a firmware update. So, how can we sum up this gimbal? It has a great build and feel, I love the grip and I find it on par with the great Ronin S handle. It's really comfortable. It has easy access to all modes and the touchscreen works great, even in bright sunlight, as long as you are not at an extreme angle. It performs good at stabilizing and it has the biggest payload capacity of its class. The rear remote handle works great, making low angle shots a breeze, and carrying the gimbal for longer periods feels totally different compared to one without. I definitely like this gimbal. The missing manual adjustment of the pan angle is not ideal, and the sensitivity of the motor force you need to be aware of. The joystick sensitivity is still a bit too sensitive, even at its lowest settings in my opinion, as I would like it to be even slower. If you need a follow focus motor and the rear remote handle, or if you can manage with the basic sets coming later on, is up to you, but the rear remote handle alone is worth it in my opinion, and I recommend getting the standard version. That's it folks, thanks for stopping by and I hope you enjoyed this review. Subscribe and tick the small bell if you like this kind of content. Cheers from Norway guys and see you soon.